Good, happy Saturday afternoon, February 8, 2020. I'm Riley King, and welcome to this afternoon edition of the Riley King Newscast, right here on the Riley King Network. We have a lot of news to get to this afternoon, and before we get started, I just want to say we have our power back on, and it is good to have the power back on, and we are back live on air right here on the Riley King Network. So let's begin with your afternoon newscast of the Riley King Newscast this Saturday afternoon. This will be your afternoon/evening newscast. I will be off air this evening. So let's begin right now. First up, thousands still without electricity in New Hampshire after winter storm. Let's take a listen to that video.
Well, there are...
And we're actually here today to officially launch our campaign to win the great state of New Hampshire in 2020. The best is yet to come.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
Still thousands of Granite Staters without power this morning after the icy weather. Right now, 12,000 customers are in the dark. State officials say it might be another day before the power is fully restored, so just be patient.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. And we would like to hear from you. Let us know if you have power in your area. Comment below and let us know who has power and who does not. One dead after apparent carbon monoxide exposure in Candia, officials say. Untimely death under investigation, according to officials. Authorities are investigating after one person was found dead Saturday morning in Candia after apparently being exposed to carbon monoxide, officials said. Officials said a neighbor found the victim dead in a detached, enclosed garage. Firefighters said they found increased levels of carbon monoxide in the garage near a generator that appeared to have been operating recently. Power outages were reported in the neighborhood Friday night after a winter storm hit the state. Officials with the New Hampshire State Fire Marshal's Office believe the death was accidental. An autopsy to determine the cause of death is scheduled for Monday morning. State Fire Marshal said it's important for residents to have working carbon monoxide detectors in their homes and to operate generators in a well-ventilated area. Officials said residents should use only a generator that has been properly connected to house wiring by a professional generator. Workers should be run outside and at least 10 feet away from a building with the exhaust facing away from the house. Improperly installed or running generators can cause carbon monoxide poisoning. Anyone who suspects carbon monoxide in a home or building is urged to leave to get fresh air immediately and call 911 before calling the State Poison Center at 1-800-222-1222 622. Man crashes snowmobile into Bob House on Lake Winnipesaukee. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9.
And we're actually here today to officially launch our campaign to win the great state of New Hampshire in 2020. The best is yet to come.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
New this morning, 2 ice fishermen in Meredith escaped injuries when a snowmobile crashed into their bob house on Lake Winnipesaukee. Take a look at the damage here. Fishing Game says the snowmobile driver, a man from Goffstown, was under the influence at the time. He refused medical treatment. Officials say the bob house did have the proper reflectors and an exterior light. That rider has now been charged.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Eight Democratic candidates speaking at Reproductive Rights Forum held in Concord. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9, Ray Brewer.
We started this campaign because the old style of politics is broken. Our challenges require a new generation of solutions. We are ready for a politics of belonging, boldness, action. Let's turn the page.
The candidates aren't taking any time off after the debate.
Well, staying busy. In fact, 8 of them will speak at a reproductive rights forum in Concord. WMUR's Ray Brewer is live there this morning with a look ahead at this. Good morning, Ray.
Good morning, Sean. The event here at New Hampshire Technical Institute begins right about now, 8 o'clock this morning here. The 8 candidates are going to be interviewed individually, unlike last night's debate. They'll each have a half hour. Now, the forum focused on reproductive rights in the federal court system. The Supreme Court and Roe v. Wade did come up during last night's debate. Forum co-sponsor, the Center for Reproductive Rights, will challenge a Louisiana law restricting abortions before the Supreme Court next month. Now, the center's CEO is going to deliver the keynote address this morning, and that should be happening right about now. Unfortunately, we are not allowed to show you any of that. Reporting live in Concord, Ray Brewer, WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Joe Biden speaks to supporters at Get Out the Vote event in Manchester. Democratic presidential hopeful is speaking at a Get Out the Vote rally Saturday afternoon in Manchester. Biden will address supporters after 12:15 p.m. in the video player above. This story will be updated. If you want to watch that video, we will share a link with you right after this broadcast on the Riley King Network Facebook page. Amy Cullenbulcher speaks at Get Out the Vote rally in Durham, New Hampshire. Democratic presidential candidate Amy Cullenbulcher is addressing supporters at a Get Out the Vote event Saturday afternoon in Durham. See the event streaming live in the video player above after 1:15 p.m. This story will be updated. If you want to watch that video, we will share a link with you right after the broadcast. right here on the Riley King Network Facebook page. Operation Blackout, New Hampshire pits hackers against election officials. Drill aims to highlight election security. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9, Andy Hirschberger.
And we're actually here today to officially launch our campaign to win the great state of New Hampshire in 2020. The best is yet to come.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
It's called Operation Blackout New Hampshire, and fortunately, for now, it's only a drill. State, local, and federal officials took part in this training exercise today in Manchester, learning how to identify and react to cyber attacks on the election process.
Nothing we did in the simulation today is very, very difficult for motivated hackers, and B, very impactful.
The drill is divided into 3 teams. The blue team, the good guys, the red team, the bad guys, and the white team, they're sort of in the middle, monitoring what's going on and keeping score. The red team represents what are called hacktivists, people who use cyber technology to influence voters in many ways. Officials say the biggest threats are not to voter rolls or election counts, but the things like power grids and false information on social media that can confuse, frustrate, or scare voters enough to keep them home.
The reality is you can execute a far more damaging attack using such activities as social media, as well as breaking into organizations that handle critical infrastructure.
Officials say at the core of any election is trust. Voters need to know that their ballot counts, free of any outside influence, to keep the democratic process pure. In Manchester, Andy Hirschberger, WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Democratic candidates meet for debate before the New Hampshire primaries. Let's take a listen to that video from ABC News.
Fundamental dynamics in this race. We have team coverage this morning, and we start.
Let's get right to our top story here. Just days before the New Hampshire primary, the Democratic candidates meet for a primetime debate right here on ABC.
The 2 candidates who led the Iowa caucus feeling the heat on the debate stage. Pete Buttigieg facing criticism over his lack of experience, while Bernie Sanders faced concerns about his Democratic Socialist label.
So many questions coming out of the debate. Who fared best? Who faltered? And will any of this change the fundamental dynamics in this race? We have team coverage this morning, and we start with ABC's Rachel Scott, who's right there in Manchester, New Hampshire, where the debate went down overnight. Rachel, good morning to you.
Dan, good morning. With the New Hampshire primary now just days away, this was one of the final opportunities for these candidates to make their pitch. And they came out swinging, piling on the attacks on the 2 candidates who claimed victory out of Iowa, Mayor Pete Buttigieg and Senator Bernie Sanders. Overnight, Mayor Pete Buttigieg and Senator Bernie Sanders on top and under attack, taking heat after a strong finish in the Iowa caucuses. Both targets on the debate stage.
It is not real, Bernie, because 2/3 of the Democrats in the Senate are not on your bill, and because it would kick 149 million Americans off their current health insurance in 4 years.
We need people with experience. That's why I'm worried about Mayor Pete.
Buttigieg, who has pitched himself as the newcomer Washington needs, challenged on his experience. His rivals calling his resume thin.
We have a newcomer in the White House, and look where it got us.
We need a perspective right now that will finally allow us to leave the politics of the past in the past, turn the page, and bring change to Washington before it's too late.
Now just 3 days out from the New Hampshire primary, a trailing Joe Biden already bracing for another gut punch.
I took a hit in Iowa, and I'll probably take a hit here.
The former VP still insisting some of his rivals are too much of a risk. A fiery clash over electability and concern over the future of the party.
Bernie's labeled himself, not me, a Democratic socialist. I think that's the label that the president's going to lay on everyone running with Bernie if he's a nominee.
Let me just ask, is anyone else on the stage concerned about...
I'm not.
Senator Klobuchar?
Bernie and I work together all the time, but I think we are not going to be able to outdivide the divider-in-chief. And I think we need someone to head up this ticket that actually brings people with her instead of shutting them out.
Sanders also on defense about his signature health care plan.
How much is it going to cost? Who's going to pay for it? It will cost more than the entire federal budget we spend now.
If we do what Joe wants, we'll be spending some $50 trillion on healthcare over the next 10 years. What Medicare for All will do is save the average American substantial sums of money.
The conversation turning to race 90 minutes in.
We have not said one word tonight about race. Not one word. Are you kidding me?
Buttigieg, who has struggled to attract support among black voters, pressed on his record.
How do you explain the increase in black arrests in South Bend under your leadership for marijuana possession?
And again, the overall rate was lower.
No, there was an increase. The year before you were in office, it was lower.
We adopted a strategy that said that drug enforcement would be targeted in cases where there was a connection to the most violent group or gang connected to a murder. These things are all connected, but that's the point. So are all of the things that need to change in order for us to prevent violence and remove the effects of systemic racism.
Senator Warren, is that a substantial answer from Mayor Buttigieg?
No.
The debate, a bookend to a critical week.
We watched on Wednesday as Republicans, all but one, locked arms to protect him from impeachment.
President Trump acquitted in the Senate, the impeachment trial closing as the 2020 campaign now kicks into high gear.
We move the country forward. We don't focus on the mistakes of the leaders that are leaving office.
And the candidates also going after a Democrat who was not on that stage. Billionaire Michael Bloomberg, the former New York City mayor, is not campaigning in the state, but could possibly qualify for the Nevada debate later this month, Dan.
Not over on the stage, but looming over the race in many ways. Rachel, thank you so much.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. And that does it for this afternoon edition of the Riley King Newscast right here on the Riley King Network. I hope you all enjoyed watching. Have a great rest of your afternoon, and I'll see you back here later on tomorrow. I'll see you back here on tomorrow with another newscast. I'll be off air this evening, but I'll have 2 news reports coming up in a little bit, so stay tuned for that, and a special coverage report in a little bit as well, so stay tuned for that. Otherwise, have a great rest of your Saturday, and see you back here on air on Sunday for another newscast. Goodbye, everyone.